Hello, everyone. Welcome to Affirmative Interaction. Thank you so much, Mike, for starting us up without any warning. We are so...
That's what I'm here for.
We're so happy to be back, and we're also excited to have Chadi here with us. Welcome, 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 welcome. From what I've been told, she's an avid fan of the show and she has watched every single episode. But besides that, we're very excited to have her on the show with us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. That's where we post some clips. You can get updates there. And also, don't forget to follow our podcast on Spotify and on iTunes. That's where you can share our episodes in audio version only, which might make it a little bit easier to listen on the go. So, guys, a lot has been happening this week. And, you know, we usually do a check-in. I really want to know, Chadi, you know, what's going on with you? You're new here. We're glad to have you. Please give us an update.
Hi, I am visiting Logan right now in California. And I'm not really an expert on anything. I just am a friend. And I'm really happy to be here. Hi, everybody. What else is there?
That's perfect.
Hey, hello, greetings. If you are watching with us right now, please say hello in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and also tell us a little bit about how your week has been too. We're so glad that you're here. Adrian, I understand that you have been enjoying COVID a lot. You've been enjoying staying in the house, going on walks.
You know, I wasn't sure where that was going.
Me either. I'm really like, we have to understand when I'm hosting the show, I have no idea what I'm doing 100% of the time.
Nice. But great. Excellent.
No clue. So Adrian and Esther, how have you guys been? I wonder. I feel like it's always tricky asking that question because it doesn't seem like anything really changes since we're all at home. Yeah. But happy to hear how you guys are doing.
We're good.
Yeah. There's no major updates on this one.
In the house, bored in the house.
Remote learning continues.
Excellent. Esther, is there an alien greeting? I do understand that on your on Esther's PowerPoint, she asked her kids to, greet as if they were greeting an alien for the first time. Esther, do you have an alien greeting for us?
I will. Okay, that wasn't the question. The question was, you're an alien from another planet.
Okay.
How do they say hello on your planet? It turns out that was like not a good thing to do day one because everybody was super shy. Like everybody was just saying hello. Like they were like, on my planet they say hi. And I was like, this did not work out. But I had one student. He has been going to school in Jamaica for like I don't know how long. He lived in DC. He went to DCPS. Something happened, and mom was like, "Okay, I'm taking you to. You're gonna go to school in Jamaica." So that's where he was, and then she brought him back when COVID hit. I guess she didn't. I guess she wanted him nearby. So he's been in school in Jamaica for a long time. And so his alien greeting was Wagwan. Wagwan. That's what he said. He was like, on my planet, that's what we say. And I'm pretty sure nobody else in the class actually got it. Like, no, everybody else was just like, he's speaking gibberish. Like, I don't even know. But I affirmed him. I was like, I know exactly what's going on, and what it means, and it was very good.
That's beautiful. And honestly, I think that's inclusion. And then speaking of inclusion, we have Mike Nixon here, who is the VP of Diversity Inclusion. And Mike, I have to say, I love the t-shirt. Yeah. Please tell us, like, how do we get that? How did you come upon it?
Hello, Jordan. Thank you for the intro. Yeah, so this shirt, it's the 100th anniversary of the beginning of at least the more famous iteration of the Negro Leagues. And so to commemorate that, they released a sort of a limited edition of some shirts and some hats and things of that nature. I got connected to it through being a Yankee fan. CC Sabathia is one of like the main persons behind the initiative. And so, jumped on it. Growing up, my dad would talk to me about the Negro Leagues a lot. When I was younger, it was kind of like, okay, Dad, cool. Can we turn on baseball? Like just watch a regular game. But he was really intentional about talking to me about, Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, and many others. Of course, stars like Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays that we found out about once they made it into the major leagues, or were allowed, to be in the major leagues. Several persons before them who were just aged out at that time when the color barrier was broken, but were amazing athletes in their own right. And so, yeah, it's been cool to kind of touch back into some of those stories my dad used to share with me and have some more conversations with him about that. You're on mute, but continue. Do your thing.
I'm dead, guys.
Technology. Mike, I do want to ask you real quick. You did speak at the Unity rally at Benton Harbor. Tell us just a little bit about what you talked about and how that event went.
Yeah, so I was fortunate to be invited, and shout out to Larry and Sandy. I see them in the comments. They were there. It was good to see them again. And one of the things that they said was just how much they love the show and all of us. And actually, even you, Logan, they even love you. And they're just of course, huge supporters. And, so it was really good to see them. But it was an event put together by a gentleman by the name of Trenton Bowens. He's coordinated a lot of different events in the Benton Harbor area over the past few months. And we kind of connected via social media, and he just reached out to me on Facebook and said, hey, would you be willing to share at this rally? And that was really kind of all he gave me. And so I was like, oh, okay. And he expressed a lot of faith in me because, I hadn't spoken at any of those events or anything like that. And so part of it was in commemoration of the March on Washington, which was the day before, 57 years, commemoration in D.C., which would have been great to have gone to, but with the pandemic and everything, we're trying to limit travel. So it was cool to be able to just share some thoughts and thinking about that moment. Was able to talk a little bit about voting as well, which of course is really important right now. And it was pretty well received, which I was encouraged by. And it was good to get some of that energy out because it's been, a crappy couple weeks, couple months, that kind of a thing. So it was cool to be able to get some of that off my chest for sure.
Thank you. And then speaking of voting, Garrison Simone, dying to know, how has Impact Democracy been going?
It's been going well. It's been going well. We've been like just pushing it to our friends, keeping people engaged. That's really the goal is voter accountability partnership. That's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But we had a great opportunity to do some mini kind of meta advertising. This past weekend, we got masked up and went out to the March on Washington here in DC, which was huge. It was about voting. Everyone's talking about voting, and Simone wore our Impact Democracy t-shirt, which was really cool. And people kind of looking at it. Saw a couple people taking a picture of it, which was really cool.
Excellent, excellent. Simone, where can we get one of these shirts?
Facts.
Yeah, we're about to, the drop is about to be exclusive. Okay, it's super exciting.
Garrison is the one who gave me my shirt.
So we gotta be married. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a tall order.
Like you got to post on Instagram 8 times.
Seat is literally taken, so I guess that's.
Oh man. Okay, so guys, and actually, before I go, Logan, we also love you, and we want to know how you're doing too.
Oh yeah, I'm doing well. Johnny came from Philly to visit me. Just a couple of sad friends wandering around San Francisco, so that's been chill. It's been good. Trying to find a job somewhere, but I'm not really looking. So whatever.
Oh Lord, help us.
Yeah,
so guys, yep. Sorry. So I'm glad that we're all doing well. And unfortunately, we were hit by some very tragic news this week. I would say acclaimed actor, an actor that has inspired so many people, Chadwick Boseman, passed away this week from colon cancer. And we just want to honor him by just talking about and really touching on how he has inspired us, and you know what his legacy means to us, and it means to, I would say, even Black people on screen. So I'll just say real quick, I feel like Chadwick Boseman just inspired me so much by how he has done so much in such a short amount of time. I would say that I believe he passed away at 42, 43, was it? 43, thank you. He passed away at 43, and I think a lot of us would say that is a very young age. And I think it's so amazing how he was able to portray so many iconic characters. And I remember reading an article saying that he brought humanity to these people, to these icons that a lot of people have failed to do in their portrayals of other famous individuals. So he was able to do so much while also fighting cancer. I think that's the ultimate sacrifice, because he also understood that inspiring people is what true legacy is. And he wanted to make sure that is what he accomplished before he moved on. So guys, I want to start with Simone. How has Chadwick, you know, it could be your reaction to it, how he's inspired you. Just please tell us, what are your thoughts on what happened this past week?
Well, I was incredibly sad. Chadwick was one of my favorite actors. And I think also, you know, and I kind of tweeted about this, but there was a lot of meaning for me personally in his acting, because he appeared in Black Panther and in Marshall while I was in law school. And I was just kind of counting, you know, I remember that moment having like a bolsa, like, you know, viewing special screening for it and all that stuff, and how much it impacted us and just really provided us kind of like that visual of what it looks like to be a Black advocate in tumultuous times. And so that was really inspiring. And then, you know, also going on to like recognize my privilege of like having gone to undergrad during the Obama presidency and then being on the verge of seeing Kamala become the next VP. It just really couched, like, you know, Chadwick Boseman was right in the middle there, and he really provided so much to, yeah, just like being able to see it, you know, being able to see Black excellence on the screen and inspiring so much of my career even.
Thank you for sharing. I can't help but think, Mike, I feel like you do have something that's on the tip of your tongue that maybe you'd like to share if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I had a couple of reactions, and I'll start with one that's similar to what Simone shared. You know, being an attorney as well, seeing Chadwick portray Thurgood Marshall, and Marshall was particularly powerful for me. It reminded me of course, my law school experience was a little bit before the movie. I actually had the privilege of taking a class called Legacy of Thurgood Marshall. And so being able to be reminded of some of those really impactful things that I learned about him and his legal journey was really powerful at a time when I really needed to be reminded of, you know, why I got into the profession. And so that was huge. Also, of course, having just talked about the Negro Leagues, I thought about, you know, the movie 42 and him portraying Jackie Robinson. And then, of course, and then I brought my mask with me that y'all have seen. Shout out to Mr. Moore, who's amazing and who made that mask for me. You know, it's weird. It's kind of like, I don't know, I don't really like bringing it out that much anymore, to be honest with you, because it's just like something that I was really excited to wear. And I still am from time to time, but it's just kind of now it's like, man, it's a reminder of the fact that, you know, he's gone so suddenly and so soon. It's weird, man. It's like one of the first thoughts I had was the end of Infinity War, when like you see the Black Panther disintegrate on the screen, and how, I mean, you know, I'm not as much of a comic book head as you also, like, I didn't know that that was coming, like, at that moment. And it was just like, wait, did they just like eliminate this dude from the Marvel universe? Are they serious? Like, it really, and of course that's like purely entertainment. That's totally to the side, but it's just like, I don't know. It just really, it hit home. And I thought about, you know, 2018, us all going to see the movie, us bringing like, it was like 100 of us in there, if not more. And it was just like, it was such a, man, it was such a moment. It was such a event to be able to just come together. And I don't know, for me, it was like, that again, for me, was one of the moments, you know, kind of still being at the beginning of my journey here at Andrews, where I just kind of took a couple moments to just sort of look around and take it in. And yeah, like, it's just a movie, right? So you don't want to get like too dramatic about it. But at the same time, it was definitely more than that for us. And for me, it was like, it was one of the moments for me where it was like, man, I really feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. You know, like to be able to have this kind of a moment at Andrews, you know, for me, it was like, I would have never expected to go to the movies with over 100 of us dressed up to see a movie just about like a black superheroes, black empowerment. It was just like, I really just felt at home, you know, for one of the first times being in this position. And so it definitely was pretty deeply meaningful for me. And so, I don't know, I'll be transparent, and I texted a couple of you all about this. I mean, I had some dark thoughts, I think, like right in the wake of it. It was just kind of, because it just feels like we're just getting hit by so many different things. And so one of the things that, you know, came to my mind, which I pushed back on pretty quickly, but I want to be honest and say it's something that came to my mind. It was like, you know, if God was black, or if Jesus was black, then maybe he didn't like himself that much. Because it's like, when you look from up there, and obviously he's God with us, but it's just like, when you see all of the different things that are happening and all of the different things that it feels like are being taken away from us as Black people, it's just hard to stomach it, like thing after thing after thing. And obviously, you know, I'm not one of Chadwick Boseman's family members or things of that nature. And so it's much more of a thing for those persons, obviously. We're talking about a Hollywood actor, of course, but, you know, he was very intentional about helping us to see ourselves and to see what we could be in multiple different arenas. And he did it with a class and a dignity and a humility that was deeply inspiring. And so, yeah, man, rest in peace to him for sure. And it's just a reminder to, you know, cherish what you have, cherish who you have while they're here, give them their flowers while they're here, because you just never really know, you know. And I mean, I know that we know that, but it's just another reminder of that. So you just got to seize every moment, every day as much as you can, for sure.
And I have to say, to be honest, I think I'm one of the things that made me, I guess, feel hopeful, especially in the Black community, is that I'm glad that we were able to give Chadwick Boseman his flowers while he was here, because I think the response people had from Black Panther was beautiful. It was powerful. I mean, just like what you're saying, Mike, us folks at Andrews, we sold out, I think, 2 whole theaters, 2 whole areas.
Yeah,
and
2 theaters full.
2 theaters full. So I'm so glad that he was able to see that the Black community loved what he did, and he was able to see what it meant to us. And I'm happy we were able to give him his flowers while he was here. Does anyone have any thoughts that they would like to share?
Yeah, I'll say that, as you guys know, I studied film production in undergrad. And so my goal was always to be a filmmaker, and God's taken me on a different journey so far. But it's always been like in the back of my mind that I'm going to make movies. And like, I've always wanted to make movies that were impactful and powerful. And, I think that like the internet and like the times that we're living in, we see so many young people doing so many amazing things so young that it's really kind of low key discouraging if you're anything like me, where you're like, oh, I have this clock in the back of my mind running at all times and I've got to do stuff, And, as I've been reflecting on Chadwick's life, like I learned about him. He'd been doing some things here and there, but I learned about him from the movie 42, which ironically was filmed in Chattanooga, which is like where I went to school. I have several friends who were in 42, and like I felt this weird connection as a huge baseball fan growing up, and the Jackie Robinson story. So I felt this connection to the film. And when I watched it, it felt so much bigger than just a movie. It felt really significant. And then he went on to make more and more films that felt like projects that were more than just a movie. And, they were so significant and so much bigger. And he did that, 42, he made that when he was 36 years old. And like, for me, like seeing someone hit the scene, his first lead role at 36, it just felt so significant. And it felt like, it's a reminder that you're not out of time. You can do the things that you want to do. A lot of people are sharing how he lived his life on purpose. And I love that. But I'm just really blown away by how he was able to live his life on purpose in such a short amount of time, being on the forefront, being at the front of the scene, And he made this the last film that I've seen by him, and I think it may have been his last project. I haven't looked into it, but the one that I've seen most recently was the one that came out on Netflix by Spike Lee, The Five Bloods. And it was an amazing film for a lot of different reasons. But it really, I shared with some friends that it felt like it was healing this generational wound. It's about Vietnam and having uncles, especially who came back broken from Vietnam. And that brokenness has scarred, parts of my family to this very day. Watching a film about Black men healing some of those wounds and finding closure. I didn't know I needed to see that. I didn't know I needed that project. And again, just like, up until the very end, his work was so significant and so powerful and so much bigger than a movie. And I'm forever grateful to him, not just for Black Panther and 42 and Get On Up, but just for the way he lived his life at 36. It's just really amazing.
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts. I was really sad. Like I think I was more sad than I expected to be. And for long, like I felt that way for longer than I expected. And I think for me, a lot of it does have to do with the movie Black Panther. Just because of I've been a fan of superheroes and the superhero films for a long time, and like just what that film meant to us as a community, as you guys have touched on, and that just how I just love watching Black people celebrate, and I love when we have chances to celebrate together like that. And I think Black Panther was just such an awesome display of that, like all over the country, all over the world. It was like red carpet events everywhere for Black people. I just thought Black Joy to me is just amazing. And I'm so glad that he got to be the face of that for us. I think there's also a couple other things that came to mind. One is just intentionality. Like for a Black actor in Hollywood, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of barriers that would force a person to have to make less intentional decisions with the roles and the stories that they chose to take on and embody. And we see that a lot. Like there's very limited spaces for Black actors to tell such meaningful stories about Black people and Blackness. And I think it really says a lot that he chose the stories he wanted to tell so intentionally. And I don't know much about his story at all, honestly, but I wonder if maybe that intentionality is part of why it was like 36 when we started to see him like breaking out and like in all these places, because I can't imagine that it would be easy if you're trying to be an actor in Hollywood to make it while trying to make such intentional decisions. And I think I think it's a message to me and to all of us that like in whatever path or purpose you choose, like this, I think we all carry the burden of being very intentional about, I'm trying to find the right words, but I think we all carry the burden of being intentional about whatever way that we can. Like our life should be about tackling oppression. Like I think everybody's life in some way, shape, or form should be about that. And I think that he just really embodied like making such intentional choices. Like all those stories that he chose to tell, like I really, really appreciate that he chose to do that. I also think I had the same thought as Nick's kind of like, why does this keep happening to us? Like this year especially, but also just like always, I feel like Black people are like, we lose icons like every year. It feels like this year has been especially difficult because there's all these other layers happening, but it feels like it happens to us so often. And I feel like as I've thought about it more, I'm like, I don't know if it's happening to us more often or if it's just that we are such a communal group of people. Like because of our collective experience, we feel such a deep connection to each other, to Black people that we don't know. Like when I see Black people make it, when I see Black celebrities and Black successful people, it feels like a piece of me is on that journey with them because there's just this innate connection because of our collective experience. And so when we lose somebody, a famous person that, you know, most of us have never met before, it still feels like a real grieving process for all of us collectively. And I kind of found myself feeling like, while that can be very painful, I also feel very lucky and blessed to be a part of a community that's like that. A community that is so like collectively intertwined and connected with each other, that like we celebrate for and with each other and we grieve for and with each other. And I think it also makes things like this that, you know, to other people, I think sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, why are you so upset about this person? You didn't know them, you know? But Black people get it. And it is helpful in the healing and grieving process also to have that community that's all going through this together. And yeah, I just think like just seeing everybody's reactions online and talking to other people about it just highlighted that, like, how lucky am I to be a part of this community, that like we feel everything for each other so deeply, and we go through all of these things together, no matter how, like the good things and like the really horrible and difficult and painful things.
Yeah, I think just to kind of piggyback off of what Esther was saying, I love what Ava, she tweeted this. It was like a picture of like 5 or 6 like famous Black actors. Like she was in it, Samuel L. Jackson, Chadwick Boseman, Tiffany Haddish, like a couple of other people. And she was really trying to make the point that like there aren't that many household Black celebrity names in Hollywood right now, right? And so when we lose one, like we're gonna feel it so much more because there just isn't that many, right? When you only have like 7 or 8 household Black names, and then one is just kind of abruptly ripped away while they're in their prime. Like it feels like so much more weight is something that we all kind of collectively have to carry. And I mean, you know, we see that not just in film, but like we see it in politics. When we lost Lewis, like, we're going to feel that heavier because it's not like we have other people there where we can say, yeah, we lost him, but we've got like so many. It's always such a small number. And I think that's what made it hurt even more. You know, when we talk about losing him playing T'Challa, as progressive as Marvel was, that movie stands out more. His character stands out more because it's the only one we had, right? Out of the 23 films that Marvel made over the last 15 years, that was the only one that we could say was like, this was ours, you know? And then when we lose such a crucial piece, and when we lose someone who you can see they were putting such an intentional effort into like integrating him into being like such a crucial character in the MCU storyline, like it just hurts even more because it felt so abrupt for someone that is like irreplaceable, you know? And I think that's what's kind of made it hard, where like even when you still think about it, it's like it doesn't seem real, like very similar to when Kobe Bryant passed. It's just like it doesn't seem real right now. Like you have to keep reminding yourself that this person's gone and we don't even know them. And yeah, I think that's why, you know, like not only do we feel it when someone is successful, I feel like it's our responsibility to affirm them, whether it celebrities, movie stars, politicians, because like there aren't that many. And as we've seen, like sometimes we lose them in an instant. And I feel like we just have to make sure that we're able to show them how much they meant to us while they're here.
I think for me, going off of that, I think of just how important representation is like on the screen. Because I remember Black Panther is a movie that I saw 3 times with 3 different groups of people. Like my father, an undocumented Black man living in America, waited for me to come home from spring break so that he could take all of us together as a family to go watch this film, because it was just so important to him as a 48-year-old man to see somebody that looked like him on the screen. Even though my father doesn't really speak English, it was still so important for him to do that. And I think about now on John Boyega, who was in the Star Wars films, and how he is facing still so much criticism from people because he was a Black character in the latest Star Wars films. And that just gets me so angry. And I'm like, what am I doing? How can I do more to support these people who have given us so much, and they're still facing so much hurt for just existing and being Black and being somebody, a fictional character on the screen. And it just is so important to me as a person who does film and loves documentaries and makes them. I'm like, and I just think about their impact and what do I need to do to make sure that I represent these people as well? How can I, as a storyteller, also do this? And that's how I see him and how it's affected me.
Yeah, it's really good. I just wanted to piggyback, continued on the representation conversation. I mean, I'm really grateful to Chadwick because he did bring us Black Panther. I was in Missouri at the time, and I remember driving to Berrien. That's like one of my favorite memories, you know, coming for a good weekend during Black History Month to watch a movie with a lot of people who I saw that were very excited. And, you know, Esther talked about Black joy and how she loves that so much, but like we don't get to see that unless we see representation in Hollywood, and not tokenism, and not just doing it because it meets maybe an agenda, but actually saying like these parts and these stories can be and should be told because Black people were a part of them, and Black people need to experience this same. You know, I've never had a connection to an actor or a character like that because it's always been so normal for me to connect with what's on screen. But that's the one thing that I continue to see with Black Panther, with, you know, when he played Little Richard or Thurgood or Jackie Robinson, like these characters, they connected with people, especially in the Black and marginalized communities, in different ways than we're seeing it connect with, you know, for me, white people. And for me, it's just to say, I want Black joy to continue to happen. And the only way we see that is when we use Hollywood to represent that and to actually tell the stories that history teachers and politicians and you know, schools and institutions have chosen not to ever tell. Hollywood can say, you know what, I can tell it. If I'm going to be the one educating, I'll educate this way. And, you know, I just continue to say thank you to Chadwick because he gave us some really good stories and some really good memories and, you know, Black joy that we couldn't have experienced without him.
Also, I'd like to say that I think a lesson that can be learned is like we need to keep showing up. We need to keep telling people this is what we want. This is what we demand. We're going to support these things. They are important to us. We're going to take up space because we deserve to. We deserve it. So very grateful for his impact and legacy.
Mike, did you want to share something real quick before we move on?
Yeah. And thank you all for what you all shared. One thing, well, two quick things. One thing kind of hit me as you all were sharing. Another reason why it was pretty significant for me personally is actually that weekend when we all went to see Black Panther. It was actually the 1 year anniversary of its time that weekend. And it gave me the opportunity as the person who was brought on for the position that was created after Garrison and Esther and others publicly protested systemic racism at our institution. It gave me the opportunity to hand deliver letters to them, thanking them for what they did and for really changing the history of the trajectory of our institution, for sure. Not because of anything that, you know, I think I'm going to do, but I think, you know, just them stepping out in the way that they did in that moment, things shifted. And so, yeah, that just came back to me. That was another just really powerful opportunity that I think we all had to share with each other that weekend, and just a reminder of just a lot of what we saw and what was shown in that film of, you know, Black excellence, Black empowerment, and how when we do step into our agency, we make room for other Black people to do the same. And so that was one thing that came to me. And then secondly, I just wanted to quickly mention, you know, a quick RIP to Coach John Thompson, who just passed away a couple days after Chadwick. One of the reasons why I think it's important to mention him is just, again, just talking about folks who were trailblazers. He was the first African-American coach to win an NCAA championship, which is a major significant accomplishment, knowing anything about how racist the NCAA is. And to do that at a school like Georgetown, which, you know, years after that finally started to grapple with its connections to slavery and how money from slavery helped set them up to be the institution that they are now. Coach Thompson was one of the behind the scenes influencers to hold them accountable. And so he was an amazing coach, obviously, but even better than that, a great mentor to so many young Black men over the years. I think, of course, of Patrick Ewing, being a Knicks fan. One of the images that stick out in my mind was when in '94, Patrick Ewing finally made it to the NBA Finals, which was really significant for us. And I was sitting there watching it with my dad, and we were like, you know, high-fiving, hugging each other and whatnot. And the first thing that Patrick Ewing did after, you know, this really powerful moment for him in his career was to walk into the stands and find John Thompson, who was there, and just give him a big hug and just thank him for all he did for him. And that's who Coach Thompson was, because, I mean, Ewing had played for him in like the early 80s, you know what I mean? So this is years after. He didn't have to show up to support him for that game, but that's just the kind of person that he was. And so it's a reminder to me of how important it is to give back and to be there for those who you accomplish things with, because he didn't forget about the fact that he was able to win a national championship with Patrick, but their relationship was bigger than that. And so huge RIP to him. I know lots of folks are affected by that, particularly in the sports world. And yeah, just wanted to mention that real quick.
It's probably impossible to follow that because huge RIP to him. What a giant, I mean, and a way maker for so many people coming after him. I will say one thing that I think is important to mention in this conversation that has been weighing on me, especially in the midst of COVID, has been not just Black mental health, but Black physical health, and how we're caring for our bodies. And, you know, we don't have any of the answers as to, you know, when Chadwick was screened for cancer or, you know, any of that type of thing, but he got it well below the age for screening. And, you know, obviously it was at stage 3, so we're not sure when he first got it. And as we're watching this pandemic unfurl on our society and our community and the people we love and care about, and it's just the poster child for systemic racism in healthcare, we have to, you know, prioritize our own health and, you know, like recognize that like that's important for us to champion and to take up and to, you know, prioritize and to ask for those screenings and to, you know, make that a cause that we're passionate about and advocating for. And I mean, obviously the fact that he was, you know, like fighting his own fight, but he was also encouraging children who had cancer and visiting them and being the Black Panther to them is such a powerful testament to Chadwick's personal strength. You know, like that is so powerful. On a more exciting note or joyful note, he does have, which some of you guys may know, but he does have a movie that will be coming out later this year, which is going to be about Ma Rainey, and it's called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And so it's going to be on Netflix. And so, you know, we do have one more Chadwick work to look forward to. So I'm sure he will make us so proud and, you know, once again, champion a cause that, you know, we're all so proud of.
Thank you everyone for sharing. I think it was really powerful for us to just be able to honor someone that inspired us and honor someone that was a part of our wider Black community and Black family. So moving to the next topic for tonight, we're going to be talking about COVID. And we're going to be talking about how COVID affects so many.
Have you been tested recently?
Yeah, you know, I'm great. You know, I had dairy for dinner. Okay, I'm fine. Masks on, everyone. We're going to be talking about COVID here. And we're going to talk about how COVID is affecting things like education, healthcare, talking about the death toll, the economy, and even how COVID is driving the current election. Essentially what Trump's plan is and what Biden's plan is in regards to tackling the pandemic. So before we start, I do want to go over some stats. Mike, can you throw up that link I sent you on the screen for us, please? And while Mike's doing that, there is a CDC tracker that was able to give us some really, I would say, accurate data. So since September 2nd, which is, of course, is today at 12:16. There have been 6 million total cases here in the U.S. Unfortunately, 184,000 deaths and almost 200 cases per 100 people. So the total cases are on the rise right now. And Mike, if you could scroll down for us real quick, you can see the map. And as you can see, especially on this on the east side coast of the country, and of course it's because it's more condensed, we have a lot of color around it, and it's pretty mixed. And just to kind of help us understand this map, the really dark red spots are the places where there are more cases, where things are increasing. So we can definitely see where Mike is pointing in Tennessee in the south. Unfortunately, we are seeing some more activity of people getting more infections. And then even towards the East Coast, where we can maybe see in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, things are a little bit lighter. But there are some darker spots. I think that's in North Carolina, and also even going down to Florida. It seems like cases are picking up. I do know for Maryland, we are going to be moving into the third stage of lockdown, which is essentially going to be letting entertainment businesses open up to the public, of course, with adequate social distancing measures. So that's just a quick overview of what's been going on. So guys, I'm really curious to know, what do you think, or how do you think our country's response to COVID has been so far? If you give us that super quick, and where do you think it's going?
Well, I guess I can go. One of the frightening things that I have noticed is just like how politicized we've kind of allowed this virus to become. And I think this can be seen no greater than at the RNC that took place. I know, like, Esther and I were watching that episode of John Oliver where he went at them that entire segment, and he played this clip of a speaker at the RNC, and it was bizarre how he spent so much of his rhetoric using past tense language. Like this once in a lifetime virus came, the president handled it, and people lost their jobs. Like he's phrasing it as if this is like something that we are no longer dealing with. It's something that is in the past, something that is no longer currently affecting millions of lives. Like, businesses are still unable to open. Schools are still having to shut down. Like, my grandmother told me that a college in Rochester wanted to be in person, but then the virus was spreading so quickly that they had to shut it down. Like, so this idea that you see this language that I see a lot of people, particularly on the Republican side of the political spectrum, use, that past tense language, is so dangerous. And I think what is starting to make it more frustrating is that language is starting to be believed by their supporters, their voters. They were already holding on to a string in believing that COVID existed, or that the tests were being, like the amounts of tests is correlated to the amount of cases, or that the amount of deaths is being overinflated. Like the number of conspiracy theories using bleach, hydroxychloroquine, like it is just through the roof. But what we are starting to see now, when we see these Republicans using that past tense language, it's almost as if they want people to just forget that this thing is happening. Go on without your lives. Have no care in the world. Mask is not that big of a deal. And it is dangerous to see that being used as your political weapon. It is almost ungodly and immoral for you to use that as your political weapon, when you know that what is the point of you gaining so much political power when you are going to have hundreds of thousands of lives of people dying. And I guess that is something that I'm going to always hold over the Republican Party, and having family members who have gotten sick from this virus, it's just unforgivable. There's no other way for me to phrase it. It's just unforgivable.
Yeah, I think what's disappointing about that is it's working. That's probably, I mean, you can look at the polls. This Trump moving towards no masks, it's not a big deal, open back up. Like, we can sit here and say that it's ridiculous, but it's clearly like working. And you know, I think the fact that we have a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump scenario, it's proven by the reality that a lot of people believe these people in, you know, positions of authority when you're running for president, when you are the president. And so that's probably what I found most frustrating about this conversation, is that we are letting people believe it. And I don't really know how to combat that. And maybe I'll have like better ideas, but that's probably what I found most frustrating, is that a report came out this week from, I believe it was the CDC, saying like 94% of deaths to COVID were from other things, like they had pre-existing conditions, which is literally how everyone pretty much dies. You get sick. Like, if you're have a weakened immune system and you get an illness or a virus, you're gonna have a really hard time getting through that. That's why so many elderly people pass away in wintertime during flu season and with pneumonia, things like that. But the right has used this as like some like, yeah, see, it doesn't actually kill people. Other things kill people. And it's like, I don't know. Trump has like pretty much used this as a way to say, it's not that big of a deal. Literally, a White House spokesperson came out and said, we need herd immunity. And so, I don't know. You gotta answer that.
Oh, keep going.
The herd immunity, like, is what they want in our society. Like, the White House is saying we can get together and we can have a 2,000 person gathering because we're all going to get it eventually. And it's like, yeah, but my grandparents can't get it. Like, they'll not make it. That's the problem. That's the reason we're trying to. But so many people are like, your grandparents will die anyway. So, you know, if this takes them, they just had pre-existing conditions and they should have ate more vegetables. And that's just like honestly ridiculous to me. And terribly disappointing, and I don't even know what to do about it. But
yeah,
sorry, thanks. I think what's frustrating to me is, yes, them talking about it like, oh, this is all over and it's done with, but also just, even if it was over today or tomorrow, and whenever it is actually, if it is ever over, honestly, is where I'm at. I just feel like there's not enough recognition of how long-lasting the impact and damages done from this virus are going to be in multiple facets of life. Like, I'm just thinking from my sense as an educator, I mean, yes, you have schools going remote. You have people trying everything that they can to bridge all the gaps that we possibly can. One-to-one technology, hotspots for families who need Wi-Fi. Like, all of these efforts are happening, and they're helpful, and they are definitely impacting like the quality of education that we're able to give to families and to children while we can't all be in school in person. But the one thing that I keep hearing and that I keep saying from all educators that I know is like, we need to be able to go back to school at some point soon, because even where we're at now, I don't think that there's enough. I don't think that people realize, like, a generation of, like, this is an entire generation of people. And in some areas, of course, where people are going to be more impacted than in others, but this is a generation of people who are losing a crucial year in their education. Right? Like, when I was in grad school, there was this stat where they were like, if you have one bad year, like you have one bad year in elementary school, whether your education is just ineffective, it's inconsistent, say you have like a teacher who's gone and then they have to bring in just subs for the rest of the year. Like, you have one bad year of education. It takes 3 years of exceptional teaching for you to catch up.
Wow.
Like, not for you to excel, for you to catch up. Like that's the impact of 1 year of just not, like, you're not getting the level of education that you need to stay on track, because everything is so cumulative. And so I'm just thinking about all students, but especially elementary kid students, like, and yes, social emotional learning is a whole other thing. But if we're just focusing on even just academics strictly, I mean, there are so many things, like so many practices that are actually necessary for students to get all the information that they need that we simply cannot do online. Like, I'm thinking about, if you're thinking about just like reading, right, which is a crucial skill, like you don't want to have an illiterate country. Like, having an illiterate country has impacts on everything else, right? Employment, obviously, like college graduation rates, how much money you make, like it impacts the economy, it impacts everything else. So much of learning how to read has nothing to do with reading text. It's all about listening and hearing sounds. Like, that's the basics of literacy, is you learn how to hear sounds first. We can't give that instruction effectively on Zoom. Yeah. So if you're in kindergarten, if you're in first grade, even second grade, what I teach, crucial years for learning how to read, learning the basics of literacy. Here, it's called phonemic awareness, hearing letter sounds. We can't give that instruction effectively online. Inevitably, children will fall behind. That's an entire generation of kids now that are behind in their literacy education. Yeah. And the longer that it takes for us to get back into schools, the bigger the gap gets and the harder it's going to be to fill. We already have a gap from just we were out of school for 3 months, y'all. Children lost a year of their math learning in 3 months. And I can't remember the stat for literacy. But I mean, just like, I don't think people understand how urgent it is for the future of our country.
All right, nobody move.
Okay.
Yes, you were at the future of our country.
Oh, yeah, the future of our country is really dependent on how quickly we can get back into schools. I really think that it's that serious. And the longer it takes, the worse it gets, because the bigger the gap gets and the harder it is and more impossible it becomes to close that gap. And it's even worse, obviously, in low-income communities, in Black communities, that parents don't have those extra resources where they can get a tutor and they can do all of these extra things. So, even as we are right now, we're going to be feeling this for a long time. But the longer it takes for us to get back to normal, the worse we're going to be feeling it, and the longer we're going to be feeling it for. And that's just academics. That's not even talking about the social emotional impacts of not having interaction with your peers for an entire school year. So it's important.
Yeah, I really hope that we're able to cut that clip out of what you just said, Esther, and like post it everywhere, because that's really, really important. I feel like we have really given up on solving this. Like, I think we've resorted to like, okay, like kind of what, I think Logan was saying earlier, everybody's going to get it. So eventually you'll get it. But the science has already told us that you only have immunity for about 2 to 3 months. Like, you only have it for for a finite amount of time. And then you can be reinfected. And if you're reinfected, then you can give it to someone, and then that person can get, and so it can be around for a really, really long time, which is really dangerous. And like you're saying, like, we have to solve this. We have to fix it and conclude this chapter for the future, for like our future generations, for our children. Yeah. And I think one of my main reflections in this time is that we have really lost our concept of we in this part of the world. Like, it's really obviously individualization and all that stuff. Like, individualism and all that. We talk about that and disparage it, and I think rightfully so. But I don't think we've ever encountered a time where it was more important for us to understand the value of we than the moment that we're living in right now. And what you're talking about, Esther, is exactly why. I mean, we have an entire generation, and people are throwing our planet away due to climate change. We are completely giving up on future-minded jobs by, like, you know, investing in coal. And now you have this pandemic as kind of like the culmination of this broken ideology of me first and I'm going to make it. But we really can't make it without each other. And so I'm really, as it's already been said, I'm really discouraged when I hear the president act as though this is an inevitability, when we really actually have to be proactive in order to solve this very real present and future problem.
Yeah.
So guys, I saw Curtis's question. I think it would actually be a really good one to ask and get your thoughts on. Curtis says, there are some positives though. We're identifying more cracks in the system. Everybody, which he then clarifies is a particular subset of Americans voting against their own interests, thought Andrew Yang was crazy until everyone lost their jobs. And he's speaking of Andrew Yang's $1,000 a month for every American. Everybody thought private healthcare was better at handling national crises. So guys, what are your thoughts on this? Do you really think that there are positives to what's happening right now?
So if I could just respond to that, because this was something that kind of affected Esther and I pretty personally. So at the end of March, beginning of April, my job, I was furloughed from my job because of COVID. The university that I was working for, they had to make, I guess, like terrible decisions. Like there's no right or wrong decision. They just had to make calls here for the survival of the university, right? And in the midst of kind of losing my job, as you all know, it was in the process of Esther and I moving, in the process of us getting married, and the anxiety that we were feeling, and I know for a fact that I was feeling, was just through the roof, right? Not just with funds, right? Because we had savings, right? We had parents, family members who could hold us down, but it's little things like for about a month, we were not going to have health care, and like that's terrifying, right? Like Esther has asthma, right? Like that's something that we can't just like ignore, right? And I don't think people realized when the stimulus check came in, and you know, when they fought to have that additional 600 with the unemployment checks, I don't think people realize how crucial those funds were to like our survival. Like not just with like paying bills, but like moving expenses to coming here, or surviving for about a month before a steady income was coming in, so that we weren't just accumulating a bunch of debt, in the meantime. And, we had a lot of people like to talk about just, we're like milking the system, or you heard rhetoric of like people being lazy. But like, as Curtis is saying, having those funds, it exposes a lot of the talking points that you hear a lot of people use, right? Like when you have this worst case scenario that people on the left have been talking about, like Barack Obama said it, the one thing that keeps him up at night is a pandemic, because that is something that you just can't, you cannot plan for it to just come so that you can have everything in set when you have an administration that doesn't take it seriously. And that's what we saw, right? this pandemic just destroyed the talking points that I saw from so many people. When you have this virus that's taking away jobs, that's taking away healthcare, that's taking away financial stability, you need the government to step in and provide that assistance, that help to keep people afloat, right? And so when you try to use that language of like less government interference in our lives, well, what do you expect people to do? How do you expect people to live? How do you expect people to survive when there are no other answers? How do you expect people to pay their rent when you've got landlords that are not being as empathetic as they could be in this moment and they're giving them evacuation notices? Who is going to be the one to step in and help these people survive? And I think this exposes how ludicrous it is to attach healthcare to employment, because when your employment's gone, it is not that easy to just go get another job. It's a fallacy to think that you'll just get something just like that. And I think what I would really hope, what I would have hoped in this moment is for people's empathy to grow on how difficult it is to live a comfortable life. Because if a pandemic can't show that, then like I truly don't know what would.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing all that, Adrian. I really appreciate you sharing it. I want to just on the healthcare point. I mean, I just want to say pretty quickly. Can we just like honestly, fundamentally for a moment, just say like the only people who like the healthcare situation in America are health insurance companies. Like they have to be the only ones. Like none of us like. I mean, it's all terrible. Like I've had a couple jobs and like I've had some jobs that haven't had health coverage, and then I've had a couple that do, and it's just like you're paying this big old premium, which it's like for what? They don't pay for anything. You know what I mean? Like they don't really cover anything, bro. It's just like it's a scam. Like, and everybody knows it. And so I just hate, I don't even understand what the argument is. Like, I really don't. Like, so first of all of the Republican congresspersons who are trumpeting all this crap about, you know, keep the government out of our lives and we don't want government run healthcare. Them and their families all have government run healthcare. So what are we talking about? All you people, all these millions of people across the country that are parroting these talking points that they're feeding you, because in actuality, the majority of them are, you know, securing for themselves this cushy retirement job in the healthcare industry or with one of these companies that's going to give them some huge salary because they've been carrying their water in Congress. What are you getting out of that? Like, I don't understand what people are getting out of it other than a terrible healthcare system. I mean, there's so many books out there about it. The book that really opened my eyes to this was a book called Deadly Spin. It's by a guy who was formerly working with the health insurance companies, and he literally was taught. I mean, you've heard the phrase death panels. He literally explains in detail in that book how they would come together and make these decisions that they knew for a fact would lead to people dying. And there was literally, they would just, and they're sitting there trying to figure out, how can we not pay for this life-saving surgery? And this is supported by pro-life Republicans. So like all of this stuff is just like, it's ludicrous, bro. Like I just don't understand what the conversation is even about. Donald Trump's healthcare plan for the past 4 years has been destroy Obamacare. That's been it. He hasn't given us one sentence on what he would do to replace it. It doesn't matter what he would do to replace it. It's just we want to degrade and kill what the black guy who was here before tried to do. And if people die because of it, we will defund, the the professionals who could help us get through a pandemic. Who cares? It's all Obama's fault. He's literally taking pictures of what's happening across the country right now and calling it Biden's America. Like, what are we doing, bro? Like, how is it the person who's trying to become president's fault? Like, it's not even like, so like blaming it on Obama got old, right? Now we're blaming it on the person who wants to be president, who has not been in a position to decide anything. Like, what are we doing? People, like, what's happening, bro? How can nothing be his fault, but everything that he creates out of thin air that's good is because of him? I don't understand how that works, bro. I just don't get it. And nothing makes sense anymore. Vote for Biden, please.
Is what's so funny and frustrating about those points you're talking about, Nixon, is that like he literally tried with the House and a Senate to get rid of Obamacare, and they were like, bring us an option, like give us a plan. And he was like, we just want to get rid of this. And they're like, nah, we can't just get rid of the ACA. Like, it exists. And they're like, no, just get rid of it. And even the Senate Republicans were like, no, buddy, like, you have to have a plan. And it's so funny because Trump supporters will put these lists of accomplishments that have not been accomplishments of Donald Trump. They've been things that the House and Senate have put through, and Trump has just signed the pen on, and people are like, look at what he's done. Like, I love the HBCU one, where he provided, you know, funding for HBCUs, and it was like, that was literally the day after he said HBCUs were racist and he wants to get rid of funding for them. And everyone was like, wait, no, the HBCUs aren't racist. That's stupid. And he was like, oh, okay, well, let's fund them then. And it's just like, wait, this is the Trump plan, is to attack, and then if he messes up, he'll swing back the other direction and then be like, see, look. And he tried to do it. He's even gone on record to say, as of 2 weeks ago, like, let's wear masks. He put a mask on TV, and everyone was like, maybe finally we'll get a guy that's willing to handle this pandemic. But we have it. We still don't. And that's the thing, is somebody literally asked me on Facebook this week, like, what's a policy that Joe Biden supports that makes you want to support Joe Biden? And I listed all these things. You can go on my Facebook page. It's under my one about that he's lying to you. And I was like, and no one would even give me a policy of Donald Trump's that they supported, like not even a policy that he supported, other than the fact that he didn't support some of these policies. And someone literally, one of my family members said to me, like, you're in a group think, what do they call it? A think tank, or it's a group thought narrative where you're being deceived with false narratives. Under the status on my Facebook, that was literally, Trump is lying to you about Democrats over and over. I'm like, you're literally telling me that I'm in a false narrative under a status that's telling you that your president is driving a false narrative over. Like, you can't even make it up. That's the thing about Trump, is it's not even that I don't like his plans. It's that he doesn't have plans, and no one is willing to look at it. It's literally insane because the guy doesn't have plans. And I just get so frustrated because I don't like Joe Biden. I didn't ever want Joe Biden, but at least he's got a plan to do something. At least he wants a minimum wage. At least he wants green energy. At least he wants to stop immigration deportations for 100 days while he revisits. At least he wants to keep DACA. And like, he has plans for these things, unlike Trump, who has literally no plan for anything. And the Republicans even said it at the RNC, we don't have a plan. We're just going to talk about Trump. And we're going to have 6 of the speakers be Trump's family. I'm sorry. It's just like literally insane that he still might win an election with, it's like me. I don't even have a plan for my own life. Make me president. It doesn't make any sense. It's insane. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Amen. You know, I'm just gonna say I agree. Thank you so much, Logan. Chadi, give them a hug if you can. Esther, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, He has no plans, except we really need to be paying attention to all of these reporters and experts who have been going overseas and have been studying fascist governments and dictatorships and authoritarianism, and how they're all telling us that we are quite literally on the brink of that, and that this election is the deciding factor, essentially. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't have a bunch to say, but I saw a thread on Twitter the other day from somebody who was, and they essentially said, everybody's talking about this election like if we lose this one, we'll have a chance again in 4 years to like get the candidate that we really wanted this time around. And all the experts are telling us, no, we will not. If we lose this election, we will never have a chance again. And it's not going to look, nobody believes it because we all think it looks like it's going to be some dramatic shift. But everybody's saying, no, that's actually not how these things work. What it looks like is, sure, we'll have an election in 4 years and another one 4 years after that. But we'll all know that what we do and vote for doesn't matter because the entire system has been gutted from the inside. So that's just another, he has no plans except for that one. Like that is a plan that he has, and we should be paying attention to that.
Yeah, and I like how, you know, when Bernie Sanders was asked, he said like Trump is not an idiot, but like he is crazy. Like we try to like put this narrative out there that like Trump his intelligence level is at the ground zero. He has no idea what he's doing. He's a complete buffoon, like idiotic. But what Esther's saying, we saw something take place during the 2016 presidential election where Trump started to create a very like dystopian echo chamber where people were only listening to him. His word was truth. He isolated news networks so that when they did try to present accurate information, their legitimacy is just thwarted from everybody's mind. And now you see it escalate even more, right? When you look at the language that people were using at the RNC, they're not saying that the Republican Party is going to help the country. They're saying Trump is going to save the country. Like that is a clear linguistic difference that we have to make sure we're catching when we're trying to critique this party, because they're not talking about somebody like Rubio. They're not talking about somebody like Mitch McConnell. Like those people are there. What they're talking about is a singular savior who they are placing all of their fealty to, right? And that we have to recognize that kind of language is so dangerous because you see it happen throughout the last 4 years. No one is going to speak out against them in these rooms, right? And then people resign or they quit or someone gets fired. And then Trump replaces them with someone who they know is going to be loyal to him. And the more people you kind of see him build into these key positions, for example, the postmaster general had no experience in postal service, none at all. All he was a stark Trump supporter, and he donated a bunch of money. And they knew that right after studies were coming out that people were considering doing mail-in ballots, all of a sudden you see the post office start to get defunded. They're gutting funds. People are starting to see their mailboxes being taken away. So many intentional efforts happening. And I'm like, well, how are you all not recognizing these strategic moves that's happening right in front of you, right? And it is so, like what Nixon said earlier when he's like showing clips talking about like this will be Joe Biden's America if you vote for him, even though like we're literally in Trump's America. Like that is a tactic that you see happen everywhere. Obstruction of justice, they tried to say Obama was going to do that. Trump did it. When you talk about meddling in an election, people swore that Obama was going to do something in 2016. Trump's doing it right now. Every talking point that you are seeing people use to accuse any left-leaning politician is happening right now within the Republican Party. And it is scary of the cognitive dissonance that I'm seeing from people who are just not able to pick up on that. So
I gotta say too, real quick, because I know Mike has some heat for us. So I'm just gonna just really, set everybody up real quick. But I think Americans really, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, I think Americans really need to recognize that party loyalty is just the worst thing that you can have right now. I think we need to start looking at facts, and we need to start saying, even though I rock with this person more than the other, are they advocating for things that I really feel like are going to help me and the people around me? And I feel like people are just so blinded. It's almost as if when you guys talk about basketball and someone says, this player sucks, but then Mike is like, no, they're from the Knicks. The Knicks are the best. But then Adrian says, no, the Knicks are terrible. If the stats say that the Knicks are awful, then I'm sorry, then they're bad. And we just need to look at facts and understand that.
Even non-sports fans banging the Knicks, bro. I can't take it anymore.
But okay, but the point still stands, thankfully, in that it's so important for us to be on the same page with these facts, because we've been operating at two separate realities for so long. It's becoming increasingly impossible for us to just get anything done. And now getting something done literally is not getting something done, rather, is costing lives. And this is something that we need to figure out. We need to fix.
Yeah, bro. Really solid points, Jordan. Before I share what I was going to, we should just take a quick look at this map. So these are high prevalence counties for COVID. And so obviously red is a Trump county and blue is a Clinton county. And so these are counties that had a high prevalence at the end of May. If you think, oh, that's a bit dated, well, if you look at this AP chart, it talks about the bulk of new cases being in GOP states. There was a bit of a turning point here Memorial Day weekend. So now at the end of June, you have 73% of new cases being in states that went to Trump in 2016.
Democratic run states.
And
wild.
You see for COVID deaths as well, it's starting to, they're on the rise as opposed to the decline. So just some quick facts for folks there on that. I want to also say, because shout out to Christians. I'm a Christian. A lot of us on here are, but I got some smoke for the Christians because you all just continue to disappoint. These days you just continue to just come up a little short. Most recently, we see hundreds of thousands of dollars being raised by Christian organizations for Kyle Rittenhouse, who, if I need to remind you, showed up illegally with an AR-16 and killed peaceful protesters in the wake of the attempted murder of Jacob Blake. We had prominent, GOP figures talking about how Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. We need more Kyle Rittenhouses, blah, 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 all this different garbage that was spewed out there. And it's really mind blowing. And this again, and several studies have shown, this is the fundamental foundational base for Donald Trump. Like they are why, in large part, he's president. They are why he has a decent shot at being reelected president. And regardless of everything that we just mentioned, everything we've seen over the past 4 years, studies have now shown that in America, the more you attend church each week, actually, the more likely you are to be racist or to subscribe to racist views. So, you know, not the opposite, not that, you know, hey, I'm going to church 2-3 times a week and I'm getting freed from this foolishness. No, I'm more likely to subscribe to it the more that I go to church. And of course, we have these folks fighting for churches to be reopened so that they can worship together, I'm sure with masks on, and continue spewing whatever nonsense it is they're spewing in their buildings. We are at we're in a moral crisis. I think we have been for a while. The religious right would probably say the same thing, and we heard a lot of it during the RNC, but for very different reasons. And if you can just blindly support someone like Donald Trump, and your church is releasing statements with issues that they have with Black Lives Matter on their official church letterhead in Chattanooga, Tennessee, you've really missed what the gospel is all about. You know, I'll wait for them to release their statement on, you know, America in general, since we're talking about things that are rooted in evil. And let's talk about the demon of racism. How about we do that? You know, it's a sin problem, right? So let's talk about that sin. How about that? I'm sure there's a lot of grace for that one. But, you know, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist demonic organization, guys. So we gotta erase the hashtags, you know, or else we're all gonna go to hell. So shout out to the Christians, man. We thank you for coming through for us once again. We appreciate you guys. Yeah, that's all I got. I didn't really know where that was gonna land, but I ran out of steam.
I think you landed quite well. Hey guys, before we close, does anyone have any last words before we say goodbye to this week's episode?
Vote for Biden.
And vote for Joe Biden.
Vote for Joe Biden. Wear a mask. And please stop drinking the Kool-Aid of party loyalty. Just look at the facts and make your decision.
And stop wearing your mask on your chin. Like, that's not helping. You know, obviously, Jordan's, you know,
you don't want your beard to get covered.
Yeah, like what is y'all out here doing, bro? Like, and stop wearing it like this. If you walk up to me like this, we're not speaking, bro. Your nose is the critical piece. Why do you think they jammed the thing up your nose? Because that's where COVID originates, bro. Cover your whole mouth, cover your whole face if you have to. Do what you got to do, bro. Wear it.
Not the tape mask.
I'm done.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't worry, PMI will be back next week. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music and Spotify. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for affirming our interaction. Take care of yourself, and Wakanda forever.
We're all doing it.
I guess.